Have you ever looked at a completely ordinary car, a discreet sedan, a coupe with no attitude, a car that seemed built only for the daily commute, and never imagined it could be an absolute missile? Because for decades, many of the fastest cars ever built didn't look fast. They had no wings, didn't scream power, and weren't trying to intimidate anyone. They looked normal, harmless, even boring. But beneath that calm appearance, they hid brutal engines, absurd acceleration figures, and performance capable of humiliating cars that were actually designed to show off their speed. In this video, we're talking about cars that fooled everyone, machines nobody respected at a stoplight, until it was already too late. 1966 to 1969, Chevrolet Biscayne 427. If there were a perfect definition of a normal car, this would be it. The Biscayne was the most basic Chevrolet you could buy. No flashy chrome, no luxury interior, no sporty image. It was the sedan you saw as a taxi, a fleet vehicle, or a police car. Nobody looked twice, and that was exactly its greatest deception. Because during the horsepower wars of the 1960s, Chevrolet allowed something that seems insane today. You could order this completely austere sedan with a 427 cubic inch big block, the same type of engine found in Corvettes and high-level muscle cars. We're talking about over 425 horsepower in a car designed to disappear into traffic. The result was unsettling. Thanks to its relatively light weight and lack of unnecessary extras, the Biscayne 427 could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just over 5 seconds, numbers that embarrassed many far more famous muscle cars. In a straight line, this car was a serious problem, precisely because nobody saw it coming. Visually, it gave nothing away. No hood scoops, no special badges, no aggressive stance. From the outside, it looked like the most boring car in the parking lot. But at a stoplight, once the throttle hit the floor, the Biscayne simply vanished. No drama, no excessive noise, no spectacle. And that made it one of the purest sleepers ever created. It wasn't designed to deceive. It deceived because no one expected Chevrolet to hide a monster inside its cheapest sedan. Today, the Biscayne 427 is a highly sought-after rarity for exactly that reason. In the current market, an authentic, well-preserved example typically ranges between $70,000 and $120,000, depending on configuration and documentation. Not because of its beauty, but because of its brutal honesty. A car that looked normal, a car nobody respected, and in reality, a true rocket. 1970 to 1972, Buick GS 455. After the absolute deception that was the Biscayne, we move into an even more dangerous sleeper, because this one didn't even look like it wanted to be fast. The GS 455 carried an almost contradictory image: soft lines, elegant proportions, and a presence closer to a luxury coupe than an aggressive muscle car. For many buyers, Buick was the brand of comfort, quietness, and maturity. Precisely why nobody expected what this car was hiding. Under the hood lived the 455 cubic inch V8, one of the highest torque engines of the entire muscle era. On paper, horsepower numbers hovered around 350, but the real terror was torque, more than 510 pound-feet, delivered instantly. It was raw thrust, constant, almost violent. On the street, that translated into something very specific. The GS 455 could run from 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 5.5 seconds, doing it without shouting, without drama, without warning. While other muscle cars needed revs and theatrics, the Buick simply pulled and kept pulling. And here's what made it the perfect sleeper. It didn't look like a race car. It wasn't trying to intimidate. Even the interior reinforced that calm car feeling. Comfortable, well-insulated, refined. Everything invited you to underestimate it, and that was the mistake. Many more famous rivals discovered too late that they were up against one of the most effective cars of its time. In short bursts of acceleration, the GS 455 could outrun machines that looked far more aggressive, not through chaotic brute force, but through pure mechanical efficiency. Today, The Buick GS 455 is increasingly valued precisely because of that dual personality. Current prices usually fall between $60,000 and $110,000, depending on version and condition. It may not be the most iconic muscle car, but among those who truly know, it's one of the most respected. 1987 Buick Regal GNX. If the GS 455 deceived by looking too elegant, the GNX did it by looking too ordinary. At first glance, it could pass for a dark executive sedan from the late 1980s. No oversized wings, no flashy colors, no sports car attitude. In fact, it looked like the kind of car nobody would glance at twice in a parking lot. And that was exactly the trick, because beneath that understated body, Buick hid one of the most feared powertrains of its era. A deeply modified turbocharged 3.8-liter V6 officially rated at 276 horsepower, though everyone knew the real number was significantly higher. But beyond the figure, what mattered was how it delivered that power. The GNX could launch from 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 4.7 seconds, placing it ahead of far more expensive European cars in 1987, including Ferraris. In a straight line, it was simply devastating. It didn't roar like a V8. It didn't vibrate. It didn't warn you. It just surged forward with relentless turbocharged force. And that's what turned it into a legendary sleeper. No one expected a black, boxy, quiet Buick to humiliate exotic sports cars. Many rivals realized it only when it was already too late. Watching those squared taillights disappear into the distance. Production was extremely limited as well. Only 547 units were built, making it special from day one, almost secretive. It wasn't an experiment for the masses, it was a warning. Today, the Buick GNX stands as one of the most respected muscle cars of the modern era. Current values typically range between $150,000 and $250,000, sometimes even higher. Not because of nostalgia, but because of what it represented. And now, I want your opinion. If you were standing in a showroom in 1987, would you have bet your money on this silent Buick? Or would you have trusted a real sports car instead? Let me know in the comments, because this car still divides opinions even today. 1994 to 1996, Chevrolet Impala SS. After the GNX, the deception moves into a new era, but not a new philosophy. The 1990s Impala SS looked like anything but a fast car, a big sedan, heavy, conservative, black, understated, with proportions that felt closer to a government vehicle or a grown man's car than anything remotely sporty. To many people, it was simply a large, serious automobile, and that's exactly where the mistake began. Under the hood, Chevrolet installed the 5.7-liter LT1V8, the same heart that powered the Corvette of the era. We're talking about 260 horsepower, delivered with thick, confident torque that moved that massive body with unsettling ease. It didn't look fast, but it absolutely was. On paper, the Impala SS could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 6 seconds, an impressive figure for a sedan weighing well over 3,700 pounds. On the highway, the sensation was even more disorienting. The car surged forward with quiet authority, stable, composed, almost effortless, as if it never had to try. That is the true sleeper spirit of the Impala SS. It didn't chase attention. It didn't try to appear aggressive. The interior reinforced that sense of total normalcy. Wide seats, relaxed driving position, near silence. Nothing prepared you for what happened when your foot hit the floor. Many classic muscle cars were fast, but demanded effort from the driver. The Impala SS did the opposite. It was speed without stress, power wrapped in discretion, a car that punished anyone who underestimated it. Today, the Impala SS has become one of the quiet icons of the 1990s. In the current market, prices typically range between $30,000 and $55,000, depending on condition and originality. It isn't rare, it isn't exotic, but it remains one of the most honest sleepers ever built. 1964. Ford Fairlane Thunderbolt. Now we step into even more extreme territory, because this car barely pretended to be normal on the inside, yet from the outside, it absolutely did. The Thunderbolt wore the look of a perfectly ordinary mid-size sedan. Simple lines, clean proportions, and a presence that didn't scream high performance. On the street, it could easily be mistaken for a typical family car. But that disguise didn't last long. Ford created the Thunderbolt with one blunt objective: win on the drag strip. Beneath the hood sat the brutal 427 high-riser V8, officially rated at 425 horsepower, though in reality it produced considerably more. This was not a civilized engine. It was a competition weapon placed inside an innocent-looking body. The result was explosive. The Thunderbolt could run the quarter mile in under 11.5 seconds, an absurd number for 1964, and blast from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just over 5 seconds. In a straight line, it simply destroyed anything that dared line up beside it. And here's what makes it especially fascinating for this video. Visually, it didn't look like a race car. No dramatic styling, no flashy aerodynamic tricks. Yet, mechanically, it was one of the most radical street-legal cars ever sold. Ford stripped weight aggressively. Fiberglass hood and fenders, simplified interior, zero concessions to comfort. Everything served one purpose: pure acceleration. It was street-legal, technically. Roughly 100 units were built, making it one of the rarest and most extreme muscle cars ever produced. It wasn't born to be popular, it was born to dominate. Today, the Fairlane Thunderbolt is an absolute legend. Authentic surviving examples routinely exceed $300,000, and at major auctions, they can climb far beyond that. From the outside, it looked like just another sedan. Underneath, it was a homologated missile, one of the purest examples of a rocket in disguise in American automotive history. 1970 AMC Rebel Machine. This is one of the most intriguing cases on the entire list because the deception didn't come from luxury or elegance. It came from how ordinary everything seemed. The Rebel Machine started with a completely common body, a mid-size sedan, no heroic proportions, no especially aggressive silhouette. For many buyers, AMC was the alternative brand, the odd choice, far removed from the glamour of Ford, Chevrolet, or Mopar. And that meant almost nobody took it seriously. That was the mistake. Under the hood, AMC dropped in the 390 cubic inch V8, producing around 340 horsepower, inside a car noticeably lighter than many direct rivals. The result was a brutal power-to-weight ratio for its time. It didn't look fast, but it truly was. By the numbers, the Rebel Machine could hit 0 to 60 miles per hour in roughly 5.5 seconds, placing it squarely among far more famous muscle cars. On the street, it felt raw, direct, and surprisingly aggressive for something that visually resembled a simple late 60s American sedan. And this is where its sleeper identity becomes clear. While other cars shouted performance through styling and marketing, the Rebel Machine delivered its punishment with relative subtlety. It lacked legendary aura. It didn't command automatic respect. And precisely because of that, the shock was greater when it launched forward with authority. Today, the AMC Rebel Machine stands as one of the most underrated muscle cars of its generation. Market values typically range between $60,000 and $100,000, depending on condition and originality. Still more accessible than many rivals, but no less capable. And now, I want your opinion. If it were 1970 and someone offered you this AMC with its 390 V8 and very real performance, would you have dared to choose it over Detroit's biggest names? Or would you have underestimated it like so many others did? Let me know in the comments. 1994 to 1996, Buick Roadmaster. Here, the deception reaches one of its most absurd levels, because very few cars have ever looked this slow. The 1990s Roadmaster was enormous, tall, soft, and visually anti-sporty. Its design projected exactly what Buick promised at the time: total comfort, silence, plush suspension, and an experience built for unhurried driving. It was the kind of car no one associated with acceleration, adrenaline, or performance. And yet, under the hood, Buick hid the 5.7-liter T1 V8, the exact same engine found in the Corvette C4 and the Impala SS. 260 horsepower, strong torque, and a smooth but relentless power delivery. In a car that looked built for Sunday cruising, that was almost dangerous. In reality, the Roadmaster could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just over 6 seconds. Numbers completely out of place for something of that size and appearance. On the highway, the thrust felt even more surreal. The car gained speed with such quiet ease that it was dangerously simple to go much faster than intended. That is the sleeper heart of the Roadmaster. It didn't shout, it didn't intimidate, it didn't warn you, it simply moved forward with unexpected authority, while its soft suspension and heavy sound insulation made everything feel calm, even when it wasn't. Many drivers underestimated this Buick completely, and many were stunned to discover that the retirement car beside them could keep up with, or even outrun, machines carrying far more athletic reputations. Today, the Buick Roadmaster has become one of the most ironic sleepers of the 1990s. In the current market, values typically range between $20,000 and $40,000, depending on condition and configuration. A true silent rocket, wrapped in the most conservative suit imaginable. 1955 to 1957, Chrysler 300C. Here, the deception didn't come from looking cheap or ordinary. It came from looking too serious. The mid-1950s Chrysler 300 carried an almost executive image, large, formal, imposing, with a presence closer to a luxury sedan for businessmen than anything related to racing or performance. To many, it was simply an expensive, respectable automobile. But beneath that conservative elegance lived something completely out of place for the era. Chrysler installed its legendary Hemi V8, producing around 300 horsepower in 1955, a nearly absurd figure for a production car at the time. It wasn't just powerful, it was advanced, durable, and built with competition in mind. In fact, the name 300 was no coincidence. It was a statement. In practice, the Chrysler 300 could approach 130 miles per hour, while accelerating from 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 8 seconds, placing it among the fastest cars in the world on an open road. And it did so without feeling nervous, without drama, without strain. That is what makes it a perfect sleeper of the 1950s. It didn't look fast, it didn't project aggression. The cabin was spacious, comfortable, and quiet. Everything suggested luxury and composure, but when the throttle dropped, the 300 disappeared with an authority many sports cars simply couldn't match. And it wasn't only quick in a straight line. The Chrysler 300 was engineered for NASCAR competition and dominated the tracks in its early years, something very few everyday buyers realized when they saw one glide past on the street. Today, the Chrysler 300 Letter Series is considered one of the great pioneers of American performance. Market values typically range between $90,000 and $180,000, depending on year and originality. It isn't just a beautiful classic. It's a reminder of the moment luxury and speed first collided, without asking permission. 1971, AMC Hornet SC 360. Here, the idea of a rocket in disguise becomes even more dangerous. Because this car didn't just look normal, it was small. The Hornet wore a compact body, simple lines, and styling many people considered outright unattractive or awkward. It commanded no respect. It projected no strength. To most observers, it was just another early 1970s American economy car, and that made it lethal. AMC took that lightweight compact chassis and did something wildly inappropriate. They installed the 360 cubic inch V8, producing around 285 horsepower, into a car that weighed significantly less than most traditional muscle cars. The result was a savage power-to-weight ratio. In real-world terms, the Hornet SC 360 could hit 0 to 60 miles per hour in roughly 6 seconds, an impressive number for something so small and seemingly harmless. In short bursts of acceleration, it could seriously trouble machines that were bigger, pricier, and far more famous. That is its true sleeper identity. It didn't look fast. It didn't sound threatening. It had no visual authority. But when the light turned green, its low weight and V8 did all the talking. Many rivals realized too late that they had underestimated the wrong car. AMC built the SC 360 in relatively limited numbers, making it a rarity early on. It wasn't designed for the masses. It felt almost like a provocation within the American market itself. Today, the Hornet remains one of the most overlooked sleepers of its era. Prices typically range between $45,000 and $80,000, depending on condition and originality. Not a beautiful car, not a famous one, but one of the clearest examples of maliciously hidden power. Small, ugly to some, and dangerously fast for anyone who underestimated it. These cars shared something in common, and it wasn't their design, their brand, or even their era. It was the visual lie. They looked normal. Some looked boring. Others looked like cars for fathers, executives, or retirees. But all of them hid something that didn't match their appearance. Real acceleration, serious power, and the ability to humiliate cars that were supposedly born to be fast. Now, I want your opinion. Of all the cars we saw today, which one feels like the most dangerous sleeper of them all? The basic sedan, the silent Buick, the overlooked compact, or that car you never would have lined up against at a red light? Let me know in the comments, because that's where these stories stay alive. And if you're still curious to see more family cars that had no right being this fast, I recommend the video on your screen right now. There, we explore the fastest station wagons of the 1960s. True missiles disguised as family cars that humiliated muscle machines without warning. Click and continue this journey through the hidden side of American performance. See you in the next video.